I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd allow something like this. But when they asked to watch, we let them. I didn't hesitate. I didn't stop to think. I just let it happen. Was it a mistake? Or did we just want to be seen? To be wanted? To feel like we mattered again? Because after a while, when no one looks at you, you start to disappear, even from yourself. And if I told you who they were, you wouldn't believe me. This story doesn't begin in the bedroom. It begins with loneliness. The kind that creeps in quietly. When the person you share a bed with feels more like a stranger. When the silence at dinner says more than words ever could. When your name starts to sound strange, even to your own ears. You do everything right. You stay loyal. You stay kind. You smile through the emptiness. And still, no one sees you. Then someone does. It starts with a glance. A comment that lingers longer than it should. A question asked with just enough curiosity to feel dangerous. And in that moment, you feel alive again. Not loved. Not safe. But alive. I wasn't looking for this. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And once the line was crossed, there was no going back. They asked to watch. Not with words at first, but with eyes. With silence that asked louder than anything ever spoken. And when I said yes, I think part of me knew I'd never be the same. So before I tell you everything, take a second to subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. These aren't just stories. They're confessions. Mine, and maybe yours too. I'm 36. Married for 10 years. And if you asked anyone who knows us, they'd probably say Darren and I are a power couple. They'd say we have it all, a beautiful house. Stability. A quiet kind of success that looks perfect from the outside. But they don't see what happens behind closed doors. They don't hear the silence. The kind that fills every room like smoke. Darren works in finance. He's smart. Sharp. Always one step ahead of everyone. Except me. Because somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me. He leaves early. Comes home late. Sometimes, he forgets to say goodnight. Sometimes, he doesn't forget. He just chooses not to. And I've become background noise in my own life. The house we live in is everything I thought I wanted. It's big, it's clean, it's beautifully decorated. But it's cold. Not in temperature. In presence. Like every chair, every painting, every room has been untouched for years. Even the air feels still. Dinner most nights is just me at the table. I cook like someone's going to notice. I set 2 plates. He always says he ate at the office. And I just nod. Across the fence, right next door, lives Brielle. My best friend since college. She's been through her own kind of war, divorced, cheated on, left to raise herself all over again. But she's light. Not in the way that's bubbly or fake. She's the kind of light that finds you when you didn't know you needed warmth. She's always checking in. Dropping by with wine. Reminding me I still exist. And then there's Jason. Brielle's younger brother. Mid-20s. Quiet. Watchful. He visits often, mostly to see her, but he's always polite. Kind. There's a gentleness in him that's rare. A way he listens when you speak, like he's hearing the words under your words. At first, I barely noticed. But over time, I started to feel his eyes lingering a little longer than they should. And instead of pulling away, I found myself holding that gaze just a second longer, too. He never crossed a line. But the air shifted when he was near. And Brielle, she noticed. She always notices. One night, with a grin and half a glass of red in her hand, she said, "You two would look good together, if you weren't married." She said it like a joke. But not really. And I laughed, but not really. Because something in that moment felt like truth wrapped in humor. I didn't say anything, but I remember how my stomach fluttered. It was the first time in years I felt noticed. Not for what I do. Not for keeping the house clean or showing up with a smile. But for existing. And that feeling. It was intoxicating. The days that followed didn't change on the surface. Darren was still cold. The house was still quiet. But inside me, something had started to wake up. Jason would come over more often. Sometimes with Brielle. Sometimes on his own, saying she forgot something and asked him to grab it. He never stayed long. But his presence lingered after he left. In the way my chest felt warm. In the way my lips parted as if to speak, only I didn't know what to say. I started choosing outfits more carefully. Nothing obvious, but deliberate. And Brielle, she'd wink. She'd tease. But never warned me. Never stopped it. Looking back, I wonder. Did she know what she was doing? Did she want to watch this unfold from the very beginning? Or was it me? Maybe I was the one who let the door open a crack. And all it took was a glance. It was a Friday night. Brielle invited me over, said she had a new bottle of red she wanted to try, and Jason had just come in from out of town. Said we all needed a break. A little reset. I almost said no. Darren had been distant all week, more than usual. There was a coldness in the air between us, and I was tired of pretending not to notice it. But something in Brielle's voice, it pulled me in. Maybe I didn't want to be alone again that night. So I walked over just after 8. Brielle was barefoot, music was low, and Jason was already there on the couch, laughing at something on his phone. He looked up when I walked in, and his eyes lingered. Just a second too long. Just enough for me to feel it. We opened the wine. Brielle made one of her snack boards, cheese, grapes, olives. It was casual easy. The kind of night that didn't demand anything from you. We talked. About nothing. About everything. Brielle teased Jason about a girl who ghosted him. He smirked and changed the subject. Then he turned to me and said, "You look really happy tonight." I froze for a moment. Because I wasn't. But something in his voice made me feel like I could be. I laughed it off, said, "It must be the wine." He just smiled. Held my gaze for a beat longer than he should have. And Brielle noticed. I know she did. Because she leaned back in her chair, raised an eyebrow and said, "Well, whatever it is, it's a good look on you." A few minutes later, the lights went out. Just like that, everything stopped. Power outage. The whole street. Brielle groaned, grabbed a few candles from the drawer, and lit them without missing a beat. She always had a way of turning inconvenience into charm. The house suddenly felt different. Softer, more intimate. The flicker of candlelight danced on the walls, casting shadows that felt alive. Jason stood beside me, close. Too close. His arm brushed mine as he reached for his glass, and I didn't move. Brielle left the room to grab her phone, saying she wanted to check the outage map. It was quiet. Just me and Jason, and the sound of the wind outside. I got up to use the bathroom. It's just down the hallway, past the living room mirror. I didn't realize the light from the candle in the kitchen was reflecting just enough for that mirror to catch me. I changed my shirt. Nothing dramatic. Just pulled my sweater off and slipped on a loose tank top. I was hot from the wine, from the way he'd looked at me. And as I turned back toward the hall, I saw it. His eyes. In the mirror. Watching me. He didn't move. Didn't pretend to look away. He just stood there. I should have said something. Should have turned away. But I didn't. I stood there for a moment longer than I should have, knowing he saw me. Knowing I wasn't stopping him. Then Brielle's voice rang out from the kitchen. "Jason, grab another candle from the hallway drawer, would you?" He blinked. Turned. Walked off like nothing happened. But something had. Something had shifted. When I came back into the room, Brielle grinned. Her eyes flicked between me and her brother. "You two are cute when you're awkward," she said, half laughing. I smiled. But my hands were shaking just slightly as I picked up my wine glass again. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of what happened. Not because I felt guilty. But because I liked it. I liked the way he looked at me. Like I was something rare. Like I was seen. And that scared me. More than anything. After that night, I started noticing everything. The way Jason's eyes always found me in a room. The way his voice softened when he spoke to me lower, slower. The way he lingered, like he didn't want to leave, but knew he should. It wasn't big things. It was never anything anyone else could point at. But I felt it, and worse. I wanted it. I started thinking about him more than I should have, wondering what he was doing, if he was thinking about me, if he remembered the way I looked under that hallway light. I told myself it was harmless. Just a little spark in a dim life. Nothing real. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't touching him. I wasn't crossing a line. I was just enjoying being seen. That's not a crime, right? But then it got harder to lie to myself. Because he started texting me. At first, it was about Brielle. Did she leave her charger at your place? Is she still planning dinner Saturday? But then it turned into more. You make the best coffee, by the way. Your kitchen always smells like home. Darren's lucky, you know that? That one stopped me. Darren's lucky. I remember staring at the screen, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Lucky? Darren didn't look at me when I walked into a room. He didn't ask me how my day was. He didn't see me. But Jason did, and that was dangerous. I started changing how I dressed. Not in obvious ways. But I paid more attention, tighter jeans, softer fabrics. Things I hadn't worn in years. When I knew Jason might be around, I wore perfume. Not Darren's favorite. Jason's. Brielle made a comment once. You're glowing lately. I laughed it off. Said I'd been sleeping better. But I think she knew. Or maybe she wanted to know. Maybe she was watching us in her own way. And that thought? It thrilled me. And it terrified me. I didn't tell her about the texts. About how I'd save them and reread them late at night. About how I started checking my phone with a little too much hope. I started having dreams. Not just physical ones. But emotional ones. Dreams where someone touched me like I was wanted. Not out of obligation, but desire. Dreams where someone whispered my name with reverence. Where someone looked at me and meant it. And it was never Darren. It was always Jason. I'd wake up with a tightness in my chest. And a guilt I couldn't explain. But also relief. Because in those dreams, I didn't feel invisible. I started noticing the way Brielle would leave us alone more and more often. Little things. Jason, help her carry that. Why don't you two set the table? I'll grab the wine. She was orchestrating something, whether she knew it or not. Or maybe she did know. And maybe she wanted it. Because she'd watch me. With this look, not quite jealousy, not quite approval. And I'd watch her back, wondering what she saw in me. And what she saw in us. It wasn't the attention that changed everything. It was the permission. Silent. Unspoken. But there. The kind you feel in your gut. The kind you breathe in before you cross the line. It was Brielle's idea. Of course it was. She texted me that afternoon, movie night. Bring that red wine you love. Jason's coming too. Just like old times. I stared at the message for a long time. I already knew what I was going to wear. Something soft. Something subtle. Something that said I didn't try, even though I did. Her living room was dim when I arrived. Candles again. Always the candles. The wine was already open. Music humming low from her Bluetooth speaker. Jason was sitting on the floor near the coffee table, laughing at something Brielle had said. And when I walked in, he looked up at me like I was the center of something unspoken. Like he'd been waiting for me. Brielle greeted me with her usual grin, pulled me in for a hug that lingered. And I could feel it, that charged energy in the room. Like everything was normal. But nothing really was. We didn't even pretend to start a movie. Not at first. We sat, drank, talked about things that didn't matter. Old memories. Crushes. Embarrassing stories. The kind of conversation that wins you in close without touching you. The kind that lets secrets slip out disguised as laughter. Then Brielle leaned forward, her wine glass swaying in her hand, and said, "Let's play something dumb. Truth or dare." Come on. For old time's sake. I laughed. Jason raised an eyebrow. But none of us said no. The first few rounds were silly. Truth. What's your worst first date? Dare. Text your ex something weird. Then it shifted. Brielle turned to Jason, grinning, eyes glinting in the candlelight. I dare you, she said, dragging the words out, to kiss her. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. The pause in the room said everything. Jason looked at me. Not Brielle. Not the wine glass in his hand. Me. And in that moment, my breath caught. I should have laughed. Should have said, don't be ridiculous. Should have waved it off like a joke. But I didn't. I held his gaze. And I didn't say no. He moved slowly. Not tentative, but careful. Like he was stepping across a line he'd been walking along for weeks. And then it happened. A kiss. Just a peck. Soft. Quick. But the way my heart jumped. The way my skin burned where his lips had been. It lasted 1 second, but it opened a door I couldn't close. The room went still for a moment. Brielle leaned back, took a sip of her wine, and smiled. Then she whispered, so softly I almost didn't hear it, I've always wanted to see you two together. Her voice was calm, measured, like she'd been waiting for that moment longer than either of us realized. And that's when it hit me. All of it. The invitations. The teasing. The moments she left us alone. She wanted this. Not just for us, but for herself. She wanted to watch. Not because she was jealous, but because it thrilled her. The closeness. The tension. The secret she wasn't just keeping, she was part of it. And in that moment, something inside me shifted again. I wasn't just wanted. I was allowed. And I didn't know what scared me more, that she gave us permission. Or that I wanted to keep saying yes. I remember that night more clearly than I remember my own wedding. Not because it was loud or wild or dramatic, but because everything felt, still, sharp. Like time had slowed down just long enough for me to make a choice I couldn't undo. Brielle invited us both again. Same tone. Same charm. Like nothing had changed, even though everything had. Movie night, she said in the text. Then, as if it were nothing, she added, I just want front row seats this time. A joke. But not really. I stood in my kitchen staring at those words. Front row seats. My hands were shaking as I poured the wine. And when I looked in the mirror before leaving, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. She looked alive. When I arrived, Brielle opened the door like she always did, smiling, effortless, like none of this was heavy. Like she hadn't said the very thing that was echoing in my chest. Jason was already there. He stood when I walked in. His eyes found mine instantly, and he didn't look away. Brielle floated through the room, pouring wine, fluffing pillows, dimming lights. She turned to us and said it, laughing, well, don't just stand there. Take your places, I'm just here for the show. I laughed, but my voice cracked, because I knew this wasn't just a game anymore. The night moved slowly, heavy with silence. The kind of silence that begs to be broken. Jason sat beside me, not too close, but close enough for my skin to hum. We didn't watch a movie. We didn't talk much. Brielle sat across from us, her legs folded under her, sipping wine like she had all the time in the world. Then, he reached for me. Not with greed, not with fire, but with care. Like I was something delicate. Something he didn't want to break. His fingers brushed my wrist first, then my shoulder, then my cheek. He didn't ask. I didn't speak. And Brielle. She didn't move. She just watched. Still. Present. Not in shame. Not in shock. But in silent approval. Jason leaned in. And I met him halfway. His kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was real. Like he had memorized every part of me before ever touching me. Like he wanted to honor the woman no one else had noticed for years. I didn't stop him. I didn't look away. His hands moved slowly, exploring, not claiming, tender, not hungry. It wasn't lust. It was recognition. He looked at me like I was art. And Brielle. She looked at me like I was free. And for a moment, I was. Then, in the middle of it all, my phone lit up on the side table. Darren. His name flashed once. Then again. I saw it. Felt the vibration through the table. Felt the world I was about to destroy pulse right there in front of me. But I didn't move. I let it ring. I let it fade. And when Jason touched me again, I closed my eyes. Because for the first time in years, I chose myself. The next morning, everything was different. It wasn't what anyone said. It was what we didn't. Jason was already up when I stirred. Dressed. Quiet. He didn't meet my eyes. Just offered a small nod, a half smile that felt more like an apology than a hello. And Brielle, she was in the kitchen, humming. Making coffee like it was just another morning. No tension. No awkwardness. Just casual brightness that felt wrong. She handed me a mug and said, "You looked beautiful last night." Like it was normal. Like what happened wasn't unraveling something inside me. I didn't answer. I didn't have the words. By the time I got home, Darren had already returned. Early, unannounced. He was in the bedroom, unpacking. Tired eyes, the smell of hotel soap still clinging to his skin. I kissed his cheek, but it felt mechanical. He didn't ask where I'd been. Didn't ask why I looked like I hadn't slept. But later that evening, he picked up one of the throw pillows on our bed. Held it to his face. Paused. Then put it down without a word. Jason's cologne. It had clung to the fabric like a whisper I hadn't meant to leave behind. Darren didn't say anything. Not then. But after that day, he started coming home earlier. He'd text me at lunch. Leave little gestures, a coffee, a folded blanket. It was too late. Too careful. Like he was trying to remember how to be a husband. Or maybe, trying not to be a fool. And Jason? He disappeared. Stopped texting. Stopped coming by. Stopped asking about Brielle, or movie nights, or wine. He vanished so cleanly. I wondered if he ever really existed the way I imagined. Brielle never mentioned it. She showed up one afternoon with wine in one hand and pastries in the other. Kicked her shoes off like always, flopped onto my couch, and said, "So, when's our next fun night?" She said it with a smirk. Like it was all just a game. Like none of it had any weight. And I smiled. Because I didn't know what else to do. But inside me, something had cracked. I got what I wanted. The attention. The fire. The risk. But it didn't feel like freedom anymore. It felt like a cage I'd built with my own hands. Beautiful. Dangerous. And locked from the inside. I've gone over it so many times in my head, trying to figure out where it really started. Wondering if Brielle knew what she was doing all along. If this was some twisted form of generosity. Or if she just liked watching people fall apart, beautifully. She was always observant. Always knew how to push without ever looking like she was. Did she invite him over more often just for me? Did she set the stage, knowing we'd perform? Or maybe I set it myself. And Jason. God, Jason. Did he actually want me? Or was it just curiosity? An experiment? Something thrilling to touch the untouchable? He said I was beautiful. Said Darren was lucky. But those are just words. And now that he's gone, without a single real goodbye, I find myself wondering if I was just a fantasy to him. A bored woman. An easy dare. And Darren. He's trying. He's home more. He asks about my day. He touches me again. But it feels rehearsed. Like he's following a script he should have read years ago. And now the lines fall flat. I answer him with a smile. I cook dinner like always. I let him hold me when he reaches for me in bed. But my body doesn't flinch from guilt. It flinches from emptiness. Because the worst part of all this, it's not the guilt. It's not the lie. It's that I miss it. I miss being wanted, desired, looked at like I mattered. even if it was only for a night, even if it was only for show. It wasn't real, but it felt real enough to keep me warm. And that's the part one don't know how to forgive. Was it betrayal? Or was it a mirror showing me what I truly needed? I think about that night. Jason's hands, Brielle's eyes. And I still don't know what part of me said yes first. I don't regret it. Not entirely. But I can't look at myself the same way either. There's a version of me that still sits in that room, under candlelight. Still waiting to be seen. Still desperate to be chosen. And now that I've been seen, I'm not sure I like who they saw. Have you ever wanted something so badly that when you finally got it, it broke you? Not in a loud way. Not with screaming or shattered glass. But in the quiet aftermath, where you're left holding pieces of yourself you don't even recognize anymore. Would you call this betrayal? Or just a cry for connection? Because I don't know anymore. I didn't plan to cross a line. I didn't even know there was a line until I was already standing on the other side of it. I just wanted to feel something. To be noticed. To be chosen. Even if it was temporary. Even if it was wrong. So tell me, was I wrong? Was I used? Or was I finally alive for a moment? Speech balloon soft sigh, like she's holding something in her chest she can't quite name. Tell me in the comments. Be honest. Because I can't be the only one who's ever felt this way. Gentle, earnest. And if you've ever felt torn between being faithful and being fulfilled, if you've ever stood at the edge of a moment and wondered who you really were underneath the silence, subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. We don't just tell stories here. We expose the heart. One truth at a time. Loneliness is dangerous. It doesn't kick the door in. It doesn't scream in your face. It slips in quietly, sits beside you, and tells you lies in a voice that sounds like comfort. It convinces you that anything is better than feeling invisible. That attention, any kind, is proof that you still exist. And sometimes, the people watching you, they're not watching out for you. They're just curious, just entertained, just waiting for the moment you fall apart. But the real betrayal, the one that stings the longest, is when you stop seeing yourself. When you stop believing you're worthy of love that stays. That holds you without asking to perform. That chooses you without needing a front row seat to your undoing. So maybe I was wrong. Or maybe I was just lost. Either way, I'll never be the same.